Welcome to the Balanced Voice podcast. We are here for our season 2 finale with our one and only, yay! Sydney Zuiker, our executive producer. We did this last season.
This
is how we're going to wrap up every season to talk about the good, the bad, what we learned,
what we're looking forward
to. And we had such an incredible season. We're gearing up for season 3, which will also be incredible. But Sydney, how do you think it went?
I think it went great. I mean, we went viral this season.
I know.
So we'll talk about that.
Yes.
But, I think this season we kind of had it down a little better than the first season. Of course, we were growing in the first season, but this season it felt smoother to me.
It smelt.
It smelt also that.
It did feel smoother. And we have the best team, guys. So Crime Stoppers of Houston, we're so lucky to have the team that we have. This podcast is entirely produced by our team and then our partners in Dallas, Real News PR. Derek, who's just done an incredible job. In addition to Sydney Zuiker, Tanya Cruz, Elizabeth McChesney, we're all working on this all the time. And I brought little props, and Elizabeth almost didn't let me share my props. But people, I mean, we do so much research.
So much. This is your research and not even like what I do.
Yes, this is just for season 2. My little notes. So we put a lot of effort not only into the podcast, but actually who the guests will be and why. We've had some pretty big names on the podcast this season, and we didn't pick them randomly.
Yes. And I think that's a huge thing, because I think it's really important for us to connect this conversation that we have on the podcast to everything else that we do.
Yes.
And so we do a lot of planning on who we're going to have, what we're going to talk about, how we're going to connect what we're saying here to our programming and our tip line even.
Yes.
And so that's something that I've really loved this season. I feel like we've had guests who have been so willing to talk about their experiences and then also talk about what we do and even connect with us post-podcast for other projects.
And I think what's been so good, Sydney, and I give you all the accolades for this, is you've turned each individual podcast into a mini session for other people, to get more information on the topics and to learn more, go here. And I think that's been wonderful. At the end of the day, we do all of this. Crime Stoppers doesn't give out backpacks or medical kits or clothing or food. We give out information, and all we're trying to do is be really, really creative with the information we're giving. So, do you have a favorite episode or guest?
Do I have a favorite guest? Well, I personally loved having my dean on because it felt like it was colliding or bringing together all of my worlds, which was like, on one hand, a little bit nerve-wracking for me. I was like, oh, my 2 bosses in the world are going to be in one conversation. But I just thought it was really fun to be able to connect what I study, what I do outside of work, very much to work, which is what I do.
Tell us who your dean is and what episode.
So my dean is Dr. Elizabeth Kaufman. I don't know what episode number she is.
I mean, but we were talking about the nexus between like teen crime.
Juvenile criminals and rehabilitation. Yeah. And kind of some projects that she's done and research she's done over time to see how juveniles can be rehabilitated, and some cool things that she's doing with one of the judges there in Orange County, I think. And
whether or not what we're currently doing for juveniles is actually proper, and can we be doing things differently? It was a fascinating sit down.
What about you?
I don't know. I'm thinking, obviously, we loved having Matthew McConaughey.
I feel like that's a given.
But and I want to talk a little bit about our time with him, because it was more than just bringing on Matthew McConaughey. We worked hard to get him because he's a Texas gem and a Texas icon, and has written a book that really tied into what we're doing. But I in preparation, I went through and wrote down Governor Abbott, Matthew McConaughey, Shepard Smith, talking about the difference between, real news and not fake news, but opinion-based news. Exactly. Dr. Laura Berman, we did 2 shows with her on the Uberization of drugs and counterfeit drugs and what these kids are now taking 15 cents.
I can't.
15 cents?
And that is maybe the episode that broke my heart the most and pushed me in our programming to really address things. We're working on some really great resources right now for parents, specifically on what to do if you suspect your child is being contacted by drug dealers or coming across these things online. And it's been one of my favorite projects in a long time.
And it's actually most likely most of our kids, if they're online, are seeing this content.
Yeah.
And it's, I just keep thinking of the Dr. Berman episode that Sammy 15 cents and what he thought was possibly a Percocet was delivered to his front door, and it ended up taking his life.
I've had, there's been multiple people that I graduated high school with, either in my grade or the grade below us, who have overdosed to fentanyl from various drugs that they purchased either on social media. But I kind of didn't really connect it all until that episode. It's like, I've sat at the funeral and watched the mom and the sister and that kind of thing, but it hit different. And I was like, we can provide a resource there. We can do something. And that's what I love about this podcast.
Doug and Elena, who talked about the loss of their daughter, 6-year-old daughter, Roxy, who drowned at a camp in California. And we've been in touch with them and they have worked to change laws in California, specifically in Los Angeles. Crime Stoppers as an organization has changed camp safety laws in Texas and now Connecticut. Greg Kelly, who was your contact.
He was season 1 though, but he just won an Emmy or a sports Emmy.
An Emmy, and he's coming back to Texas.
He is. He's back. And his post, if you don't follow Greg and Gabrielle Kelly online, you need to. They are the most precious couple. And he talks about how he chose the husband role and is moving back to be with his wife instead of living in a different state. And it's just precious. They're episode, I think, 3.
Oh my God, they're early on.
Yeah.
But they've stayed with me. Mm-hmm. They've stayed with me, and I follow them, and I just think about wrongful conviction and what it means for us as an organization. Obviously, we care about public safety and we want justice, but justice means having the right person in custody.
So I'm curious. If you've had any perspective shift because of any of our conversations, or just pondered a different perspective that was brought to us on the podcast. I feel like when you're in it all the time, it's kind of like you get your ideas on things, but some of our guests have at least surprised me this season.
I'm trying to think. I'll tell you right now, Tim Winter and everything he's doing in terms of like the ratings and talking to parents about how to navigate the digital world, TV, movies, online streaming, I thought was amazing. And it didn't shift my thinking, but it definitely opened my eyes to this whole other area that as parents and an organization, we need to be looking at. Fran Drescher, it was very interesting to hear her talk about the nexus between rape and uterine cancer. And I know she linked that to sort of Asian science, and I just found that to be very, very...
like the mental and physical. I think that's interesting.
The abuse, like the trauma, changing in your body to something else. There was one more, Sydney, that we spoke about earlier. I can't...
Oh, Judy OBrien.
Judy OBrien.
She's the sex offender therapist.
Yes.
Sex offender therapist. And she was episode 31, I believe.
I don't know, but and I don't know what number, but it was really interesting to talk to her about, like, does therapy work? Can these individuals be rehabilitated? In some instances, therapy works, but they can't fully be rehabilitated. We talked about if the sex registry works or is even helpful. And really what it does is basically say these guys can't get a job anymore. But does it do anything else?
Right. And I think that that's such an interesting subject, and something that I've been surprised to be interested in through my studies is that, or kind of an argument that she made, was that we make it harder for these sex offenders to succeed in society. And when they're stressed, that makes them more likely to reoffend. And so does having all of these, we're creating a cycle. And so her bringing that up, I thought was really thought-provoking. It had me kind of sitting up at night.
Yeah, I know.
So we need new systems all around.
We need new systems all around. What about you? Any thought changes?
I don't know about thought changes, but something that really stuck out to me was when Matthew McConaughey said that we need to do things that fill our soul's account. That's something that just continues to ring in my head, and something that I've really pondered as we work in this space. I'm thinking about yesterday. Yesterday we had
Yeah.
a press conference that was really heavy with a victim's family about a homicide. And this is unfortunately something that we do regularly here. I mean, I think our homicide rate is up 42% this year. And so that's heavy. That's heavy.
6 months into the year, by the way.
Yeah, 6 months into the year. And that's just one component of our job. And so I've really been thinking about what fills my soul's account. What can we do? What can be done so that we can continue in this space?
Yeah.
Because it's a hard space.
It's a hard space. I love that he also talked about the fact that we're in the shadows.
Yeah.
And doing the hard stuff, the stuff that nobody wants to acknowledge is really happening and a part of the fabric of our city, but it is. And I think when he said it, we ended filming and a few of us had like tears in our eyes with him because it was just a very compelling conversation. I'll say Dominique Saxa too, talking about, how you present online and all these young girls that are trying to find and navigate the online world and how they dress and appear. And those messages can't be said enough.
I found her episode to be really refreshing. That was one that I ended and I was like, wow, that filled me up.
Yeah.
It was good. It's just her whole perspective. And then going and watching some of her YouTube videos that she's just so...
beauty inside and out.
Yeah, exactly.
Fully
and
inside
she's the
out.
best one to deliver that message of, hey, how do we present ourselves? Hey, what matters? And I loved her.
And it's not like she's not online. She's active online, but she does it in a way that preserves her values and integrity. Tamron Hall with Tina and Tama, talking about animal cruelty.
And the link between domestic violence.
And shelters and the lack of shelters that take animals.
I think that that's something that we've been fighting in the shadows for a long time and something that we see in Houston so much. And so I love that we get to have Tina and Tama in our city who are working so hard for the animals. And Tamron Hall, it was so great.
It was so great.
Her.
My dad was like,
oh my gosh.
Just cut your hair like hers. I'm like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Okay. So there's a couple guests that I know we might have had a bit of differing viewpoints from. Let's talk about that. Was there anybody for you that you were like, that's interesting?
I mean, I it's hard for me to separate because we do so much research going into it. I mean, Nikki Sharp, who was early on in season 2, was very interesting. She said a few things about health and wellness. Some of it didn't actually make it to the podcast. But we even had many discussions after about I don't even know how to properly say it, but women and I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. And it's hard to articulate.
Like victimization.
Yes.
How do we approach victimization?
And do we have a role in it almost? And those are very hard things to talk about because you never have a role in victimization. But yet at the end of the day, it's also important to talk about how to stay safe. And so she said it in a very different way. And it was really interesting. And she's, by the way, just got engaged. So congratulations to Nikki Sharp. We're so happy for her. But that was a very, that was a conversation that left me digging.
Me too. And again, I always think of, because not only do we do podcasts, but I mean, I have a program to run. And so it kind of pushed me to think a little bit more about every word we use on a piece of paper, every word we use in a slide, and how do we make sure that we are teaching safety without, I don't know, making anyone feel ashamed for anything. And not that she did that to us, but
she asked very important questions.
She did, and it made me think even more about what we do and the importance of every single word that we put on a paper.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, these people have such interesting perspectives, and somebody asked me last week, are you guys just looking for like big names that are willing to come on the podcast? I said, well, certainly Crime Stoppers, we give information and we want to align ourselves with people that have a larger footprint than we do. But we absolutely look for a nexus. And we've now been approached to have people on the podcast. And if there is no nexus with our mission, we're not going to do it. There's other ways we can do things, but not here.
Absolutely. You want to play a game?
Sure. What?
All right, let's do it. We're going to play Get to Know Rania in 2 minutes.
Oh, God.
So I love doing this kind of thing.
Are we like putting a timer?
Yeah, I'm putting a timer.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to ask you these questions rapid fire.
Okay.
And you have to answer them. Isn't this fun?
Yeah, but I didn't really prepare. Okay, go
It's
ahead.
okay, but I don't want you to prepare.
Okay.
They're,
Can you're doing it with you after.
doing this with me. This is get to know our host. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. What's your favorite Houston restaurant?
Right now it's Blue Dorn.
That's a good one. Where do you want to travel next?
Europe.
Europe, where?
Yeah, France.
Also me.
I want to go. Yes.
I know.
We're both going.
We're both going.
We're both going.
I can't wait. Okay.
Not together, but we're both going.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be? And it can't be to have more superpowers.
It would be to read people's minds.
Really? You want to read people's minds? Ooh, I don't think I want to know what everyone's thinking.
I want to know if the words I'm using offend or resonate, if they're misunderstanding me, if I think there's so much loss in communication.
Okay. Who's your biggest role model?
Barbara Walters, still to this day. Do you know who she is? I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Kidding.
Yes,
I know there's like a generational difference between us, but she's shaped everything I do in my life.
And you had her.
We had her in 2010 at the Crime Stoppers gala, and she held my face in the elevator and said, keep doing what you're doing. I almost died.
Okay. Fill in the blank.
Okay.
If you came to my house, you would always find
food and flowers.
That's so true.
Food and flowers.
Yes. Okay. Fill in the blank. A perfect day off would be
anything with my kids and my husband.
I love it. Okay.
Preferably on a beach. We're in a city though.
A beach in a city. Do you have a specific one?
Like Boston. It's a city on a beach. Like it's not just a beach.
Okay. Is it true that you started at Crime Stoppers as an intern?
Yes. $10 an hour as an intern with my desk in a hallway.
Okay. Final question. And you have 26 seconds. What's your biggest piece of advice for young people listening today?
Hard work, no ego, teamwork, know your weaknesses, know your strengths, and it's okay. Embrace them. Be willing to rise above them.
You got 10 seconds left.
I mean, we're good.
Look at that. That's awesome. Good job. And there you have it. Yes. Get to know your host in 2 minutes.
Yeah. No, but I will say that that's an important one. And it's weird when you're the face of something that people misunderstand that sometimes. And it's like you want to do the best job you can as the face, but you also know when other people have different talents and better talents than you do, and you let them rise up, like our little Sydney over here. No. And so that's important to do, I think, in work or in leadership anywhere. And you're going to be misunderstood no matter what you do, where you go, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
I mean,
good.
Aren't you finding that, Sydney, like already in your early days of your incredible career?
Yeah, and I think that like it's been so nice to work with someone who is so encouraging and is willing to say like, you got this, you do this. And I mean, we get so many opportunities here and it's really, really huge. This balanced conversation is made possible by Brigitte and Bashar Kalai, Hallie Vanderheider, Sippy and AJ Karana, and Deepwater Productions. If you're interested in furthering our mission of facilitating balanced conversations, offering real solutions, contact us at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. Okay, so let's talk about season 3. But first, what's the biggest thing you've learned from season 1 and 2?
Season 1 and 2, I've learned one that we can pull this off. First of all, without me breaking the equipment. 2, I learned that we are doing such a good job as an organization that really we are gaining the attention of some of the most notable people in Texas and across the country, and that we can hold our own with them. In addition to all the little nuggets of information and gold mines and viral statements and laughs and cries and disagreements and agreements, but to me, I'm so proud of this team, so proud of you, and so proud of Tanya and Elizabeth and Derek, and honored that I get to work with you guys. How about you?
Same. I think, okay, so this podcast is, as we said in last season's finale, kind of been my dream for many years. And so I'm kind of the person that says, yeah, we can figure it out.
Yes, which I love.
And sometimes I internalize, I don't know how we're going to figure that out. But it's been, like you said, so amazing to see that we can do it. We can do it.
We can.
And we do. We do it every week. And there are some weeks where I'm like, are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And we do every week. So That's been really great. I also think I've learned that sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Yes. That lesson has been learned over 2 seasons, that like sometimes 5 questions is enough.
Yes, exactly. I actually have to keep learning that because I stress over the research and I could pull out 600 questions. But you don't let things marinate when you do that. You know, you need to let answers marinate, use pauses, listen to people's stories. I will say, this has been through COVID. Everything is via Zoom. We're not sitting. We sat with Jennifer Homan in studio, but we are everything's so like there's many walls, you know, so between guests, and you're looking at a camera, not their face. That's been interesting.
Yeah, and so I think I've even liked learning again and again that less is more, because it gives us an opportunity to then give more in another part of our organization, which I always love. I love connecting it all. I do it in my brain. I'm like, oh, and then what resource are we going to give next?
Yes, I love it.
Okay, so what are you looking forward to most for season 3?
We are already working on an incredible lineup for season 3. I'm not going to share any names, but if we can do this, I mean, it's just going to be incredible. Some unbelievable figures that all are connected to our mission that will sit down with us. And somebody just asked me, did Fran Drescher come to the studio? I said, no, these people, you know, it's impossible to get people to fly. You know, the virtual component makes it possible. So do you have a dream guest for season 3?
I do have a dream guest. I don't know that we'll ever get this person, but I love Tyler Perry. I loved his Oscar speech. I loved when he said, if you want to meet in the middle. I mean, that's everything that I believe in, and the heartbeat of the program that I've been so blessed to be able to build. And so when he said that, I'm sitting there watching the Oscars with my husband. I like stopped in my tracks. I was like, rewind, play it again, because I think that we've lost that art. And a lot of our guests have even said that. We've lost the art to not judge people right at the beginning and to, you know, minimize hate and that kind of thing. And that's what he does. It's what his foundation does.
He's like the ultimate balanced voice.
I know. So he's my dream. He's my dream. Do you have a dream?
I do, but I'm not going to say.
You're not going to say. Okay. I don't think that we can finish a season without talking about going viral a little more.
Oh my gosh.
Like, tell me, when you woke up and we were all of a sudden viral, what did you feel, think? Did you say anything? I mean...
So first of all, we're talking about the Matthew McConaughey podcast, and we worked, what did I tell you? 5 months before we got him that we were working on this. Yeah. And we worked carefully with his team to craft questions and reading his book cover to cover 6,000 times and taking so many notes. There was a lot of nuggets in the book that I said, let's just kind of go out on a limb and ask him about, even though he's never talked about it. And you know, they said, don't talk about politics. I said, no, we're not. But he was so kind and generous. Like, we were all best friends with him.
It's like we've known him for years.
It's like, and then even after, before we started, he was talking to Sydney about why her, why she was talking about
my accounts are the way that they are.
Yes, I mean, it was a little personal, but it was funny and awesome. And then after, he was talking to us about other stuff, and then he recorded a birthday message for my daughter Evelyn. I mean, he was so nice, and we're working on some stuff with him, and we just love him. So that whole statement, and he said, I've got to think about my next role, and I said, oh my God, I can't talk about politics. They said, don't talk about politics. So I said, I'm just making a statement. Don't answer. Don't comment. But if you were to ever think of running for governor, we'd be happy for you. And he said, no, I am, and it's a true consideration. And I knew in that moment. I was like,
so that's when the light bulb went on for you. I
was like, this is a very big, but I out of respect for his team, if you watched that episode, I just moved on to the next question. I didn't, but I knew. And then that night it was all over local news. The next day it was all over national. Even that night it was making its way across national. Now, because we have an alert set up for it, it's every country, every language, everything. But it's because he's so loved.
I know. My favorite thing is I got a text message from my mom's longest, dearest best friend, who's basically my second mom. And she was like, oh my gosh, you're on Good Morning America.
I know.
I was like, what? I don't think any of us had even seen it yet. And she's like, here, I screen recorded it for you or something and sent it to me. And I was like, Oh.
I know. Our friends in Boston were, and you know what? It was so funny, Sydney. This wall that you built with your hands, you and Elizabeth and Tanya literally built the panels with put the panels with their hands. It's become like a trademark of the podcast. And seeing that on multiple news and print, just the wall gave me like
goosebumps.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really did. And I thanked God 100% for it. 100%.
Absolutely. So this is the end of our season. We're going to take a short break, catch our breath for a second, and get ready to roll for season 3. But over the summer, you can follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice. You can follow us, or at The Balanced Voice Podcast. Sorry.
Yes.
You can follow us on Twitter, _BalanceVoice. And join our virtual programming via Crime Stoppers. You can go to our website, crime-stoppers.org. And on our events page, we have links to virtual presentations every single Tuesday at 11. So if you want to see what we do other than the podcast, we'd love to see you there. And then sign up for our newsletter. We send a newsletter every single month that includes information about the podcast, includes information about other programming, other events. Most of our events will do hybrid, so in-person and virtual. So whether you're here in Houston or not, you can join our events. And again, we'd love to see you.
Yes, and please send us your ideas. What do you want to hear about? What topics do you want? Who are your dream guests? Because this is a podcast by the community for the community. Follow the podcast and subscribe. And rate it. What are those the right? Are those the right things, Sydney, that I'm asking for?
Absolutely. So if you like what you hear and you want us to be able to reach more people, the best way to get this out there to more people is for you to give us a 5-star review on Apple specifically. Of course, on any platform, but Apple's kind of the one. And so that's how we reach more people with really, honestly, life-saving information. Please.
Thank you, guys. This was so fun. Our second recap. We look forward to season 3 and everybody having a great summer. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you.
And for everybody else, we'll catch you next, August, September, on the Balanced Voice podcast. Thank you, guys. Have a good summer.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @balancevoice_. Stay up to date on Rania's work by following her at The Rania Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.